The Senate last week approved for second reading a bill for the amendment of the 2024 Appropriation Act, as President Bola Tinubu sought an additional 6.2 trillion naira to fund the 2024 budget. President Tinubu's request for the additional sum will increase the size of the 2024 budget from 27.45 trillion naira to 33.7 trillion if approved. In a letter read by Senate President Godswill Akpabio, the President explained that the Appropriation Act Amendment Bill 2024 aims to allocate 3.2 trillion for infrastructure projects, including renewed hope initiatives, and 3 trillion naira for recurrent expenditure. This President also seeks to amend the Finance Act of 2023 to impose a one-time windfall tax on foreign exchange gains realized by banks in 2023, adding that the tax will fund capital infrastructure development, education, healthcare, and other public welfare initiatives. The two amendment bills were granted accelerated hearing and passed for second reading after a debate on their general principles.
The Appropriation Act Amendment Bill 2024 seeks to amend the Principal Act to provide the sum of 3,200 billion only for renewed hope infrastructure projects and other critical infrastructure projects to be undertaken across the country, and the sum of 3 trillion only to meet further recurrent expenditure requirements necessary for the proper operation of the federal government, expenditure which are to be funded by expected revenues accruing to the federal government of Nigeria.
Meanwhile, after months of deliberation and negotiations, the Nigerian government this past week announced a new minimum wage of 70,000 naira. The agreement was reached after the meeting between President Bola Tinubu and the leadership of organized labor, as well as some members of the government's team on the tripartite committee on the new national minimum wage. The tripartite committee had submitted two figures in its report to the president as a result of this agreement among the government, the private sector, and organized labor. While the government and the private sector offered 62,000 naira, organized labor demanded 250,000 naira. The Minister of Information and National Orientation, Mohammed Idris, said President Tinubu agreed to pay 70,000 naira from the initial offer of 62,000 naira. In the meantime, the House of Representatives has resolved to support the federal government with 648 million naira for 6 months by slashing their salaries by 50% to support food sufficiency across the country and to address the high cost of food. This followed the adoption of an amendment to a motions prayer moved by the Deputy Speaker of the House, Benjamin Chizea Kalu, on the need for lawmakers to sacrifice 50% of their 600,000 naira monthly salaries to support Nigerians given the hardship in the land. Kalu's amended prayer was to a motion moved by Ibrahim Isiaka from Ogun State, appealing to proponents of the planned nationwide protest to abandon the idea and engage the government in dialogue. In a related development, the Consumer Price Index, which measures the rate of change in prices of goods and services, further rose to 34.19% in June, compared to 33.95% in May, and that's according to figures released last week by the National Bureau of Statistics. Year-on-year headline inflation was 11.40% higher than 22.79% recorded in June 2023. Food inflation increased by 15.62% year-on-year to 40.87%, compared to 25.25% in June 2023. Month-on-month, the food index also increased to 0.26% to 2.55% compared to 2.28% in May. Similarly, all items, less farm produce and energy or core inflation, which excludes the prices of volatile agricultural produce and energy, increased to 27.40% year-on-year in June, which was up by 7.34% compared to 20.06% in June 2023. Economist and financial analyst Dr. Boniface Chizea joins me here now to offer his thoughts on these stories. Good to have you, Dr. Chizea.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on This Live, the Sunday Talk Show.
Well, it's my pleasure, yes.
Quite a basket of stories.
Yes,
Where do we come from?
Yes.
But first, the president is looking for additional 6.2 trillion in the appropriation bill for 2024. 3.2 to go into infrastructure, another 3 trillion to go into renewable agenda. We've been told by the Minister of Budget and National Planning that the 70,000 naira that the federal government is now offering federal workers will take 3 trillion. So I assume that they are trying to accommodate, that expectation. What do you think? I mean, 6.2 trillion, increasing the budget to over 30 trillion. Where is the money going to come from? I thought the position of the federal government has always been that their problem is revenue. I hope they are not going to look more in the direction of taxation and confront us with the kind of situation that we have in Kenya.
Well, I would expect that for the National Assembly to give this approval, one of the questions they must ask is, how is this money going to be funded? How is it going to be repaid? So that must be part of the package. So you start by saying that, are we going to borrow more? Are we going to resort to printing money, which we've condemned, which happened not too long ago? So I think that's part of, I'm not sure we have facts on that matter. But this gives us an opportunity, to discuss the budgeting process in this country. I think that something is, fundamentally, something is wrong. I think that budgets are not done that way. I think there's some gap in understanding and appreciating, what should be the budget procedure. And if you look at the media, one of the things we hear is that we are trying to operate 4 budgets at the same time. So we go back to 2023, we have a budget, we have supplementary budget, and the president is asking that this budget should be extended to the end of 2024 because there are items on the budget that have not been executed. And then now you come to 2024, you have the 2024 budget, you're also now having supplementary budget. It's not done that way. I have budgeting experience. The important is that there's something we tried in this country which takes care of this problem. You have what they call a rolling plan approach to budgeting. And so when you want to do your budgeting, so you put the budget, you take a 3-year perspective on your budget. And this is done, because people expect that, particularly for capital projects, that some projects would overrun. So you have a capital project, and you're expecting that budget, capital project, is going to be executed within the year, the budget calendar year. It overruns. If it overruns, you just roll it over because you have a rolling plan. So the rolling plan says at each point in time, you have a 3-year budget in place. And that will take care of all these problems. But because we tried this in the past, but because we don't supposed to have the short memory. We do things and then we do them, we abandon them and so on and so forth. And we don't bring people with, the requisite expertise, to take care of this problem. If you did that, now you cannot say because you have the budget that was approved in 2023 and then there's some items there, capital projects have not been implemented, you've not completed the execution, and then you want to now carry forward as no permission. They shouldn't come up. So fundamentally, I think that's the problem. So I think that we need to begin to find a way, to get our acts in order when it comes to budgeting. And another thing that is worrisome, we know the National Assembly is going to rubber stamp and approve this. Are they going to do due diligence? So this renewed hope initiatives, what is that? And you're putting 3.2 trillion. Well, the 3 trillion part of the budget, we know what that's for. I think we now have wage increases and means of Finance, Coordinating Minister of the Economy, has told us that it's going to cost government 3 trillion naira additional money. And so he wants us to budget for that. But this is going to be a recurrent money being spent. So how are we taking forward to make sure that next time we just keep on heaping borrowing upon borrowing upon borrowing, and then we're not even worried about repayment. And sometimes we just borrow these things and we think that we're going to leave it for those who are going to come behind us, to take care of. And I think that's disingenuous. It's not something that, that's not the way we should run this economy.
Before we talk about the 3 trillion,
yes.
We'll go into the payment of the 70,000 naira deal that the federal government agreed with Labour. Now, how about this tax that's going to be placed on banks? We all know that the banks make humongous profits. And some of these bankers, they live recklessly. Banking is supposed to be a conservative profession. But now you have bank MDs living like rock stars. Now the federal government is saying the forex gains that they made, they are going to cough out 50% of that. And now, what are the implications of this for financial intermediation? Even if ordinary people don't think that, these bank MDs are behaving rightly. I think they don't behave like the old bankers that we know. They think they are superstars with other people's money.
Yeah, well, I don't think it's going to affect financial intermediation. I don't think so. Financial intermediation is that people are going to deposit monies, and those who need money will come and borrow from the bank. So it's not going to affect it. But I think that you have an unusual, not a normal situation. And then government is trying to approach it. Government has crisis in governance. We are short of revenue, and so they want to go for this. My concern is I don't have any issues with that. It's not the way it should be done, but there has to be some transparency in trying to go about it. So if a government has to find a way to make sure that this thing is done in a way that everybody agrees, so we have a crisis. These monies were monies that we earn just because rate of exchange, thing went suddenly from 600 rand to 1,005 to 2,000 naira with dollar and so on. The move made a kill. So it wasn't end. It wasn't end. It's one of the things that's caused inflation in our economy. So if that money wasn't end and government wants to go and take part of it, so why not? I don't have any problems with that. It's not part of taxation, but I think that if you can say, maybe it's not so elsewhere. But also elsewhere, people don't earn such quantum monies, through such situations, because such situations are not easily replicated elsewhere. So I don't have any problems, but I think that there has to be equity, there has to be transparency, there has to be fairness, and to make sure that everybody agrees. But I don't know. But I think the government should also engage the banking sector and then discuss with them and see if there are any implications, and so that the approach they will adopt is one that will not lead us to more crisis.
Okay, the tripartite Labour Committee agreeing on now 70,000 naira. At a time, Labour was asking for 615,000. They brought that down to 500,000, 497,000, 62,000 at the end of the day. The federal government offered between the range of 40,000 and 62,000, and now 70,000 naira. Is it something to cheer about? Although the same federal government says the negotiation will now be every 3 year cycle. And Labour says, well, it's better to collect what has been given and wait to fight another day. What do you think?
Well, Ruben, I think that we should, it's not a relief of sorts for those of us who have some knowledge about these things. If we paid 200, let me not even go to 650. If we paid 250,000 naira as wage, minimum wage in this economy, the impact it will have on inflation, you can't describe it. And so you have to be very careful. What you see, we had the Udoja Award in 1973 and so on and so forth. It will impact, it will cause more inflation. Now, of course, people have a point in saying that 70,000 naira cannot buy a bag of rice. Yes, but it just happened and you have crisis on your hands. But you don't have a problem on your hands and then you complicate it. You don't worsen it. You are in a hole. You are trying to dig that hole for you to sink more inside that hole. You don't do that. So you have an inflation rate that is the highest in 28 years. You have an inflation rate that is now 34.19%. the way to go is for us collectively to work to bring down that rate of inflation. The way it is now is not sustainable. There's no money they give to you. That money will compound the rate of inflation. And you take that money to the market, it will not take you anywhere. So collectively, so people are saying, I think that is good that the agreement, even the 70,000 naira, if you take a look at what has happened before, it was 30,000 naira. Some states were not able to pay. And so when you now go from 30 to 70, you have an increment of more than 100%. So but we know it's not adequate. So yes, the solution, like I repeat again, is that inflation. Look at Rishi Sunak in Britain. When he saw inflation rate at 2%, he rushed to call a snap election. Of course, he miscalculated. But that's the way to go. So inflation drops, then you have more productivity, you have more employment, and people are happier. And I keep on saying it. The governance is about the welfare, the well-being of the citizens. And we must not forget that. So I think that what's happened, for us, those of us who have an appreciation of these things, I think it's a wonderful development, and that it could have gone overboard. So we'll try and manage it and make sure that going forward. But since we don't seem to learn any lessons, from our experiences, unfortunately.
But Dr. Chizea, some people are saying that the government has decided to take this decision at a time when some Nigerians are saying that they are going out to protest and create a Kenya-like situation, and already they started. They are saying Tinubu must go, and some people have been named as, sponsors, treading on the path of treason. Do you think that the federal government has done this at this time just to calm nerves and prevent people from taking to the streets?
Yeah, well,
do you think it's a strategic?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's anybody's guess. It's obvious. What is happening now? You find that some of the steps that we are taking, that essentially we are trying to make sure that we don't have the Kenyan experience repeated in Nigeria. There's no doubt about that. So the government is sending palliatives. Government is trying to. They are trying to firm up the rate of exchange. Now, if you follow the things that happened recently, Cardoso is trying to begin to give monies to Bureau de Change and so on. So they're trying to raise this money. So that people are scared, because if it happens.
So you think the government is scared?
Yes, they have to be scared. You have to. What can they do? If you have that sort of mass uprising, how are you going to checkmate it? How many people are you going to kill? Those are the issues. It shouldn't happen. Look at the destructions and damages that happened in Kenya. It's an ill wind that blows nobody any good. We have to try and avoid it. But unfortunately, we don't seem to. The governance, those in governance, they live in denial. And so we have a situation that we have crisis on our hands. I say cartoon, that's going all over the place. They show those who go to borrow money, their stomach is bloated. And those who are lending us money, they live they have lean figures. And that conveys the message. You have a crisis in your hands. And those who are the head of affairs, they are not showing, they're not living by example. And so governors move about, they move with heavy cars, and they go 16 cars on the convoy and so on and so forth. And they were paying monies for Mecca Hajj in Mecca. We're paying 90 billion naira Hajj in Mecca. We are, the first lady, she's going overseas, and we're spending money here and there and so on. That's you want to make, he who comes to equity must come with clean hands. So if you want people, that's the gap, trust deficit in governance in this country. So you show example, live by the situation.
Well, as part of efforts by government to focus on the well-being of the people. The people have now been offered 70,000 naira minimum wage. Labor has agreed. Organized labor has agreed. At the same time, the government says it's going to remove import tariffs on the importation of food, even if Dr. Akinwumi Adesina of the African Development Bank thinks that it's not a good idea, that what we should do is to encourage productivity and local production. The government also says it's going to create a ministry of livestock transformation. The government also says that it's going to give fertilizer to the states, and they've done so already. Now they've given 740 trucks out, 440,000 bags of 25 kg rice to the FCT and 36 other states, so that, you know, the cost of living crisis can be alleviated. Do you think that this will help within the next 150 days?
Yes, I think those are crisis measures. So you have a fire on the roof of your house, you better be trying to put off that fire. So at least, I don't agree with additional. Yeah, I don't agree with him because I think you have a crisis. So yes, it's good for us to encourage, agriculture. We have vast territory. Somebody said to me that if you look at take Niger and take Taraba State, they have enough land space to feed the whole of this country. So but you have a crisis on your hands, and people are having an explosion. People are hungry. Say hungry man is an angry man, and so so if government is trying to take some of those measures, we must see it for what it is. We must put it in perspective. The government is doing this because they want to, if you want, to defer, to make sure that this looming danger that is coming doesn't happen.
Okay, but the same government, is also saying as part of measures, members of the House of Reps, I assume they are part of government. They say, in fact, to support the federal government measures, they are going to give up 50% of their salaries. They claim they earn 600,000 naira per month. Well, many Nigerians may not believe them, but they are saying for at least 6 months, they will take half a basic salary. How about that? You think it's good? It shows sensitivity, commitment on the part of the politicians in the House of Representatives.
Yes, I think that's all measures geared at making sure that that this protest doesn't happen. So, I keep on going back to what I said earlier. What's happened is in Kenya, the man in Kenya, Ruto is still back in the bar. They wanted him out. So they don't want a repeat of that. So it's a token. But it's a token that at least shows that there's some consciousness. There's a need for those of them who have been living off the system, to begin to make some sacrifice. But that money that they are saying that they're going to cut from the salary, they earn about 10 million naira a month.
So you think the lawmakers are lying?
No, they're not lying, but they're not being clever by half. So they give us 40%. 40% they say I read some places they said 800,000. Some places say 600,000. They give us 40%. They are 360. The total amount comes to below 1 billion naira in 6 months. So okay, all right. So people have been saying that these people are living large and so on. We are suffering. Look at their salaries. One of the reasons why labor, was insistent when you say what you're asking is atrocious. I tell you, go and look at their salaries. They should begin to cut back. So if they want us to, cut back, that cutback should be across board. So okay, so there's some sense in what they've done, but I think that it's not gone far enough. Because even the money that's going to come from that, what are we going to do with it?
Dr. Chizea,
yes.
You said the 740 bags of rice per state, 25 kg bags each, I think it comes, it's been calculated 44,400. It's a good attempt, in your view, to put out fire on the roof. And it's a good step in the right. Please, how many mouths will 44,400 bags feed in Lagos of 20 million plus people?
Ruben, you're just asking me leading questions. I think that, like I said before, it's tokenism. They're just trying to show that. In fact, the rice will go and they will hijack it in the system.
Party members will
hijack it. It will not even get to those who need it. If someone will hijack it and even sell it.
So it means no fire is being put out.
Well, the fire, at least there's a gesture. The optics is there. So government is trying to do something. But is this far enough? I think those are the challenges. That's the issue.
Anyway, okay, Dr. Chizea, as I try to close my conversation with you, there's been some turmoil in the downstream sector.
Yeah.
With Farouk Ahmed, who is the head of the Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Authority, saying a lot of things about Dangote Refinery. And Aliko Dangote, yesterday, when members of the House of Reps were visiting the Dangote Refinery, having to fight back to say, well, whoever thinks that he's not doing the right thing, they too should try and set up their own refinery. But my own concern, when I first commented on this issue, that it is most strange that a key regulator, because here is the NMD PRA, created under the authority of the PIA, is demarketing an indigenous effort. And that is most strange that government would put in so much energy to demarcate what it encouraged initially. What do you think?
Well, I listened to my friend Aliko Dangote. I listened to him talk.
He's your friend?
Yes, my friend.
So you are a biased commentator?
Well, yes, I am, in some extent, but I'm for Nigeria. Let me tell you, what's happening in this country? I think people are asking the question, is Nigerian government, are they really happy that this is happening? I would expect that they should be behind Dangote. Even if there are issues with the thing, the authorities should not come and speak and demand, like, they're trying to demarcate. They're trying to, put some bad marks on the thing. Even if there are issues, it's something that should be discussed behind the scene. What's happening in this country, we have 3 refineries. Those 3 refineries have not worked for more than 25 years. And here we've kept people in employment in those refineries. We spent humongous amounts of money paying salaries. And one single man comes and sets up a refinery that's adjudged in this space as the best in the world. The best in the world. And you're talking this way. If he's having issues with even the crude, government should partner. We're supposed to be shareholders in that refinery. Initially, we were told 20%. Now it's 7.5% because, again, we've not lived up to the expectations in terms of our contributions, the equity contributions, and whatever it is. It's in this country, and it's a project that gives us a good opportunity to solve some of the crises we have in our hands. Subsidy and so on, it will disappear. The money foreign exchange we spend to import fuel will not be spent there. We'll have more to spend elsewhere. So for somebody in authority to be saying that way, as if he's talking about a foreign investment, Dangote has come up firing. So even the land, they paid 100 million to Lagos state government. So what has government done for them? It's not clear to us. But I think that Nigerian government should borrow some sense. Because the crisis we have in this hand, the population we have, the pain in the system, we better focus and try to solve it. That's the way forward.
Okay, Dr. Chizea, thank you. I've heard your views. I express similar views. But the part that I take away is you saying Aliko Dangote is your friend.
Yes, he is.
I think we'll discuss that matter
off
camera.
But it's not easy to see him.
You can't be Aliko Dangote's friend. You say, no, that in itself has implications. Anyway, thank you very much, Dr. Boniface Chizea, for joining us on This Day Live, the Sunday Talk Show.